Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles. I am delighted to be joined by a fantastic filmmaker with a very special film. Zahra, it's lovely to have you here. Thank you for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
And I loved your film, but for those that haven't seen it, let's take a look at a clip. Thank you so much for bringing your film to New Filmmakers LA. I really have so many questions, but for those that haven't seen Veil, tell us a brief synopsis.
Sure. Veil is about a Muslim teenager with a conservative upbringing who deals with the consequences of switching her modest dress into a more revealing attire, and with the help of her friend at a high school prom. And I guess throughout the night, we're basically seeing Layla, who is put into different situations, and she gets to be testing her values and consider and question really who she thinks she is and who she wants to be.
There's just so many emotions that young teenagers go through anyway, and this kind of extra thing that she has to deal with is so unfortunate because it's so personal, and and just seeing how people treat her, and it's a difficult watch because this is unfortunately existent for a lot of teenage Muslim, particularly girls as well. For you personally, where was the inspiration for you in deciding to turn this story into a film?
Right. I guess I've been always very much fascinated with the themes of identity, belonging and assimilation and things like that. What you do to the extent to you go to be able to fit in. And that's been always a fascinating thing to explore for me. And if I wanted to see that, how would I turn that internally and to think about my own? Sorry, that was so much. I don't know.
What was that?
It echoes so much. I hear my own voice.
Yeah. Oh, echoes. Okay. See if it's is it better now? Let me see.
Let's talk. Let's see. Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So I'll get back to it from the top again. Yeah, I guess the whole notion and the themes of identity, belonging, and fitting in has been always a very fascinating subject to me. And for that reason, I thought that I should turn that in and ask that question from myself, that when was it for me that these things became so fascinating and subjects that I wanted to, be surrounded with and deal with. And if I were to think about my own self, I have been rooted and uprooted so many times. I've moved so many times that I really lost count of how many moves I've had from different countries, different continents, and different cities. And this rooting and uprooting, I guess, made me question that where's home, and what is my community? Who is my community? How do I make myself every time be able to be a part of a new society or community? Who am I within all of that? And questioning all of these things with, being at a specific age, it was also, emerged with the questionings of, what is my upbringing? What is my culture, and what is my religion? And at the same time navigating through my desires with at that age, sexual awakening and all of that, it felt like that's an obstacle, and in a way my beliefs and my upbringings are in a way of constructing who I want to be. Again, growing up, I think it's really difficult, and no one wants to feel like an outcast, and especially if you know that your upbringing is becoming the construct of forming the identity that you wish to create. So Layla, our lead in this film, I think is portraying that by just showing, that we set it in a setting that to encompass what it is to feel like a teenager and the stakes of now you're entering into adulthood. I thought that prom was a great venue for that. It already has its own stakes. I hold those stakes, and at the same time, you know, wanting to not explain so much in a short film, placing her in that situation made me feel like that would be the best situation for anyone who feels like they're struggling with their identity, to show how you go on the path of discovery who you are and who you want to be in your adult life.
So it might be my sound actually, Zahra, but thank you for explaining all of that, because I think it's really, really an important story. You know, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of, growing up in high school, I had a lot of friends that were Muslim, and, you know, and it's such a personal journey of just growth as a teenager anyway. And, you know, I just kept watching the film and I was like, just let her be, let her discover on her own, like let her just enjoy her own self-discovery without all of this, you know, the typical high school stuff that happens, unfortunately, that shouldn't be happening at all. Tell us a little bit about your cast, because I thought their performances were just pinpointed everything that they were kind of going through, and just that toughness of being a teenager, and particularly for Layla.
Yeah, sure. I think casting was one of the challenges for sure, because number one, there's such a small pool of actors and talent out there who would be able to, you know, fit the part, but also be able to relate to it and also look the part. I was fortunate to find Jenna very last minute, and this is the thing, every time I go into a project, I'm like, I'm not gonna have my cast, you know, all set up and settled right before the shoot, but Jenna literally came out the week before the shoot, and it was a miracle. And it was a very fascinating process, because thankfully Jenna, even though she's not Muslim, but she comes from similar backgrounds and upbringings, and she's so worldly and mature that she could really understand and relate to the character. The challenges with Jenna at the same time was that she is a musician and she's a model, and she's very, very comfortable with her body image, expressing herself and putting herself out there. So to, you know, kind of keep going back and forth about that, but this character, you know, is more reserved, and this character hasn't done this before. So that was, I would say, the biggest challenge in terms of the collaboration, but she did a great job, I think, you know, being able to get into that mindset. But for me, it was a challenge as a director to direct someone who's so open about, you know, how they put themselves out there.
I no, absolutely, and I thought that it did a really great job in the direction, because it really just felt like everyone just really identified with their situation, their character, their circumstances. One of the things I was so hugely impressed with was just the production. You know, it was so crisp. It was like almost, it was just beautiful to watch. Like the whole stimulation on the dance floor was just really great. Some of the, you know, angles that you caught of characters, you know, how they were feeling that moment. Did you kind of have a specific way you wanted it to look? Because whatever you decided to do, I really loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate all the compliments. I think me and my entire team, we had lots of conversations about how we wanted this to come across, but partially one of the great things about the project was that it was a curse and a blessing at the same time. I say that because it was pretty much entirely set on a dance floor with a big cast and with a big background. And I only learned about you should not be setting your entire film on a dance floor, because you go into the cutting room and everybody's dancing differently, and they have, you know, all the challenges of how this is going to cut together. But having said that, it was also a very interesting way, because we had access to the location prior and we could go and visit it, and just the scenes with the mirrors, all the scenes with the mirrors, I would say there were the things that after having locked the location, we incorporated into the script and into our project. And we thought, what a great way that if we incorporate those mirrors, that we can reinforce the idea of identity and self-image.
Sorry about the pause, Ms. Ryan. I just don't want to have that echo for you. No, thank you for sharing that. I want to go on to say, like, obviously, I know challenges, you know, with a dance floor. And I think I admire anyone that makes a dance floor scene because there's so many components to it. Was there kind of anything else, like in the making and creation of your film, either on production or something you may have learned from this production, that any challenges that you kind of faced the most?
I guess this was overall the most challenging film I've ever done in every way. Big cast, big background, dance floor, all were one thing, but also I think the story itself was the most challenging part. I don't think I have truly experienced many projects of this sort that are not one-sided and it doesn't portray Muslims in a negative light. And it is more of a more in how to say it, there are not many authentic stories out there that are about Muslims, and if they are, you know, there's obviously always so many conversations around it. So one of the challenges was that there were not many good resources to look into and to, you know, make examples of for my team to be able to draw inspiration from. So that was one of the things. And the other thing was that this is the struggle that I've been having ever since I migrated outside of Iran. And I feel like, you know, to be able to completely paint a good picture that what are the rules and what are the principles and what are the restrictions within the religion and the culture, it, you know, in many ways it's difficult already to talk about it in words, let alone to try to paint that in a short film and from a point of view of a teenage Muslim girl who's practicing, you know, obviously with the way that, you know, she has her own restrictions. So I thought the story itself was one of the biggest challenges as well.
Well, I mean, you did a great job. So I'm so glad that you started the way that you did. I'm just curious. I mean, there's so much I've, you know, taken from your film. But I'm just curious for you personally, because this is personal. Like, what did you want your audience to take from your film?
Right. I guess as much as this is a portrayal of a Muslim teenager, but it is also a very much universal story in terms of, you know, coming of age and also navigating yourself, your life towards adulthood and the identity that you want to be recognized with. So I think no one said this better than Brene Brown. And that is about on the notion of identity, and that is our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. So I think one of the things that I want people to take away is that this is for any one of us who is struggling with the notion of belonging and fitting in, the fact that fitting in and assimilation is always the acceptance of others and never the acceptance of ourselves. And that is something greater to navigate the world through. So trust in yourself and trust of the person you are and you have become. And the other thing, again, on the same topic of identity, I think it was my hopes and my goals was so that I can shed light on a different perspective of what it is to live, you know, with an upbringing of such as Layla's, and also that we are all very similar. It's just a matter of the choices that we make around the boundaries and beliefs that we set for ourselves. And these challenges and these things that we think are our struggle or you know, show themselves to us as some sort of an adversity, perhaps if we lean into them more, they would be able to guide us through the path that we want to take in order to be able to find ourselves and you know, achieve the things that we want to do.
I'm just so glad you're a filmmaker. Like, I just love all of your, you know, creative intelligence, and you're gonna make so many great films. I'm so excited, but you already started your career off really, really well. And so it leads me to say, what is next for you at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm in development with 2 different feature films. both kind of, you guessed it, are reinforcing the same ideas of identity and belonging, but completely in different formats, different genres. One that is the one that I'm mostly working on. It's called Islands, and it's a murder mystery that it's set in a rural cottage community, and it's about this Ojibwe sergeant who is who came across this new murder case, and solving it means that she needs to actually access her own past, the traumas that she had faced. And it's a dual narrative that cuts between past and the present. So basically, through going her own past, we see the traumas and the struggles that she had in order to be able to fit in within her own community, and how that recent murder in the present time, it has a similar situations that was posed to her once back in the days. And the other feature is actually a lot. I mean, I'm really excited about it. Especially, I think, having lived through the COVID era, it's a romantic film, and it's also an adventure one. So for all of us who couldn't go outside this whole past year or so, it's a good film that it would be able to bring outside to us. And that's about actually a 50-year-old unemployed divorcee who reluctantly says yes to the invitation of her parents' family reunion in the wilderness of Newfoundland. And she just gets taken away by the bewitching driver of a bus full of chaperones, and totally turn her worlds upside down.
I am ready for both. I'm like totally ready in my seat with my popcorn. Wow, that's incredible. This has been really, really exciting to talk about Vale, but also to hear about your future projects and all of your advice. I feel like you've been doing this like 30, 40 years. It's unbelievable that you just in the early stages of making your film. It's fantastic. So I just want to close, I want to close just with anything you may have learned from this project, or anything that advice you have, or anything you want to see more of in our filmmaking world, the platform that we have.
Right. I guess in terms of advice, I would say I came across filmmaking by not just the education, but also, wearing different hats and crewing up on many different projects while I was in school. And having been able to be exposed to those different, crew roles or positions and things like that was such a blessing in terms of when I became a director, I was able to, empathize with a lot of my team members and know their challenges and all. And also writing has been also a great way to be able to practice what you write into the screen. But I think the most important of all is that no matter how much knowledge you have about the film, the techniques or your own story, it's very much important as a director to be able to be present, to be, you need to know your own material before you step onto your set, and be present, because film set is just a very organic world and mechanic that if you are not present and you're just very much stuck to the script, stuck to the story that was written, and you're not going to be able to utilize all the accidents that happens on set, all the struggles that will come through, and you need to be able to embrace those. But that only happens when you're present, when you're paying attention and knowing your story really well. I think that has been the best education for me, and that's the thing that I would love for anybody to allow themselves to lean into it. And yeah.
Well, thank you for your TED Talk, Zahra. That was I mean, very inspirational. Really, really, honestly, I'm so excited for the rest of your career and the next projects that are coming up. But listen, thank you so much for bringing Vale to us, and a big thank you to all of your cast and crew. And I'm so glad you shone a light on these characters. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you for having us.